Bleeding purple and gold. From the heart of Los Angeles, this is the LakersNation.com podcast with your host, Trevor Lane.
Welcome to today's show. We are powered by CLNS Media and are brought to you by ZipRecruiter. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/Lakers for all of your hiring needs, as well as Harry's Razors. Go to Harrys.com/Lakers for a fantastic set of razors. Now, we have so much to talk about today because the NBA world is just getting Woj bombed out of existence at this point. It's just insane. We've got Phil Jackson out in New York. We've got Chris Paul getting traded from the Clippers to the Houston Rockets. Paul George rumors flying left and right. He's recruiting people to the Lakers, but then he's also maybe getting traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Boston Celtics are trying to line up trades for him. Maybe the Houston Rockets are going to go after him now that they have Chris Paul. Just so much going on in the NBA world right now, and free agency is starting in just a few days. So it is a busy time of year. And in fact, I'm going to take a moment before we get on with our guest, which is Jordan Schultz of Yahoo Sports. I'm going to take a moment here and talk a little bit about this whole Chris Paul deal, as well as what we may see the Lakers do, because I do have some comments that we didn't get to in my interview with Schultz. So the Chris Paul trade, first of all, I mean, good on the Clippers for getting something for him. Okay, he let them know that he was going to walk, and the Clippers were able to actually get something. They got Lou Williams, they got Patrick Beverley, they got Sam Dekker. I mean, those are real pieces. They now have an actual NBA quality wing in Dekker. Beverley and Lou Williams are both good guards. No, they're not Chris Paul, but those are good pieces there. And then they also got a 2018 first-round pick, top 3 protected. Obviously, that protection won't matter much because the Rockets are going to be near the top of the league. But still, they got a pretty decent return considering Paul was leaving anyway. I mean, the alternative for him to just leave and them get nothing is would be terrible for them. And the Lakers know exactly how bad it is to lose a star and get nothing in return. So seeing the Clippers get Chris Paul or get something for Chris Paul is it's amazing, really, that they were able to pick up anything. And then the Houston Rockets getting him. I mean, look, on the surface, he's the best player in the deal, and so you got to say, man, the Rockets are really going to be trouble next year, especially we're hearing they're going to chase a third star and everything. But I'm a little bit worried. I really am. I'm a little bit worried for the Houston Rockets. Now, I think they're going to be just fine because they've got plenty of talent on the floor. And I mean, James Harden and Chris Paul together, that's just too much talent for that to really completely fail, right? But both guys like having the ball in their hands, and both have an extremely high usage rate, so I'm not sure how that's all going to work. Mike D'Antoni is the point guard whisperer, of course, so you know that he's going to get something out of Chris Paul. I mean, he's going to get a solid performance out of him. It's going to be interesting to see how he splits up responsibilities, but what I'm mostly concerned about, if I'm the Houston Rockets, is that Chris Paul, as president of the Players Association, actually helped negotiate a change in the rules so that older players can get longer-term contracts. And because the Rockets will inherit Chris Paul's bird rights, it means that next summer, when Chris Paul now becomes a free agent because he actually picked up his option in order to get traded to the Rockets, when he becomes a free agent next summer now, at 33, he can command a max deal for 5 years and over $200 million. If I'm the Rockets, I don't feel great about paying him that. In fact, this may have been a factor in the Clippers trading him. It could be that the Clippers were okay with trading Chris Paul because they didn't feel comfortable with paying a 32-year-old Chris Paul 5 years and $200 million. We're starting to see NBA teams balk at this. I mean, we saw the same thing with DeMarcus Cousins, where the Kings realized how much they were going to have to pay and opted to ship Cousins out. They sent him to New Orleans instead. So if you're the Houston Rockets and you give Chris Paul a 5-year deal for over $200 million and then you're paying him that much money when he's 35, 36, 37, even into 38, I mean, that's pretty scary. That is a huge chunk of your salary cap, and I don't know if that's something that you really want to get tied down with. Of course, I mean, you got to go for it when you can, and you got to try to win, but this could come back to hurt the Rockets in the long run. Other side note from this trade that should make Lakers fans happy, the Boston Celtics actually own the Clippers 2019 first-round pick, and if the Clippers wind up losing Blake Griffin as well, which is possible, it sounds like they're losing JJ Redick, and if they end up losing Blake Griffin as well, this team's going to be not good, right? They're not going to be in the playoffs. And fortunately for the Clippers, they actually protected their 2019 pick. So they protected it 1 through 14. is protected 1 through 14 again in 2020. And if the Celtics don't get it in 2019 or 2020, then it converts to 1 second rounder in 2022. So that big asset that the Celtics could have had, which would be a decent first round pick from the Clippers in the year 2019, could have just lost a decent chunk of value. So that's just another little side effect here from this trade. Now, free agency is coming up for the Lakers. My own personal thoughts, Jordan Schultz is going to get into it in just a few minutes here, but my own personal thoughts are that the Lakers aren't going to be that active, and I wouldn't be surprised, actually, I wouldn't be disappointed at all if this happened, to see the Lakers actually absorb a 1-year deal from somebody in exchange for some sort of asset. We've seen them take that approach in the past. They absorbed Jose Calderon last season in exchange for 2 second-rounders. They got a first-rounder for absorbing Jeremy Lin. The key is that it only lasts for 1 year. Anything beyond that, the Lakers won't do because they want 2018 cap space. But that may not be a bad way to use up some of the Lakers cap space this year, because I don't think many players are going to want to take 1-year deals. So the Lakers may have to get a little bit fancy here, may have to get a little creative on the trade market rather than pursue major free agents. So that's what I'd be looking for if I'm a Lakers fan. I'd be looking for some shrewd moves from the Lakers to utilize their cap space that may not necessarily mean signing players. We'll see what ends up happening, but that's just a hunch of mine. As I said, guest for today is Jordan Schultz, Yahoo Sports NBA insider, so let's go ahead and bring him on now. Jordan, thanks so much for joining us.
Trevor, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
So crazy time of year. We just got through the NBA draft. We've got free agency coming up, all sorts of things going on in the basketball world. This has definitely been a very, very busy off season. How'd you enjoy the draft?
I just loved it. You know, it was one of those fun ones in the sense that you had some elite top-heavy talent, and then you had all these guys that came off the board later in the first, even to the second, where, you know, I think in other years would have gone much higher. It was a deep draft, and then obviously, of course, all these other rumors, and then Jimmy Butler gets traded to Minnesota, and it was a really fun night, I thought, and a really good night for the league.
Man, I don't know about you, but I wasn't too impressed with the haul that the Bulls got for Jimmy Butler. Especially, I didn't understand why they had to give up the 16th pick in the draft in order to deal with.
They shouldn't have.
Yeah.
No, they shouldn't have. They're absolutely right. You know, sorry to cut you off, but their whole thing, Chicago, is like, you know, they feel like they can maybe hit the lottery with Zach LaVine, who they got in return from Minnesota, and obviously Chris Dunn as well. But LaVine's coming off knee issues. When I talked to him recently, he said he felt great. You know, you never really know with ACLs, especially someone like him that relies on that athleticism. Mm-hmm. And then obviously it trades Jimmy Butler, who's a second-team All-NBA guy in his prime. Just a huge get for, really for the entire Minnesota organization, especially for Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that trade actually got done. I mean, when it happened, I thought, okay, you know, it kind of makes sense. But then when that 16th pick part came out, I was like, man, they gave up that pick too. You'd think the Bulls would want to keep as many picks as they could, and it certainly seemed like, you know, what they already had, even without giving up that pick, seemed like a fairly good deal. But we'll see. Chicago's rebuilding, and we'll have to see what happens with Dwayne Wade. But since this is a Lakers-centric show, what was your take on the Lakers draft? Did you like what they did?
Well, if anybody happened to read my draft grades, they'll know that I absolutely loved what they did. You know, on so many different levels, I gave them an A+ because they got their point guard of the future in Lonzo Ball, who I think is going to be a really good fit for them, especially if they can go out and get Paul George, whether it's now or down the road, because just the ability to push tempo, I think Ball is someone that people are really going to enjoy playing with. You know, he will make you better. You just have to run the floor with him and find spaces, because he will create so much off the ball for you. So that's a big plus for me. And then also they went out and got Josh Hart, who was one of my favorite unheralded players in the draft, just because he can defend, he can make shots, he's a winner. I just love Josh Hart. And then completely off the radar, Kyle Kuzma, I thought he should have gone higher. I think he will really help them right away. He's not somebody that's going to start, obviously, but when you start to get down the end of the first round, you're looking for these guys, these versatile, athletic, kind of 3-4 guys. That's what Kyle Kuzma is. They loved him at Utah, and I think he's going to help them right away.
That's interesting. I've had heard a lot of people say that they weren't that thrilled with the Kyle Kuzma pick, just because he wasn't on a lot of draft boards in that slot and everything. But it kind of reminds me a little bit of Larry Nance Jr., where in 2015 nobody was expecting him, right?
Yeah. Right, and they can do some of the same things. Yeah, exactly. Well, also Thomas Bryant. I mean, he's not a perfect fit in the sense that, like, again, some more duplicity, but he can really help you because he wants to be good. Like, he's a worker. This guy improved his body. He improved his vertical in college by 13 inches. He can guard. He's not a great athlete yet, but like I said, he's improved it. And that, to me, again, like, this is the guy you're looking for in the second round. So I think the Lakers had a wonderful night, both in terms of ball now and then long term with a guy like Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see them try to incorporate 4 rookies. Of course, Josh Hart is, and even Kuzma a little bit too, being a junior, is that these guys are a little bit at the older end of the rookie spectrum. So hopefully there won't be quite as many growing pains as a freshman would have. We'll see. It's an exciting time in Los Angeles. We're all definitely looking forward to seeing these guys out at Summer League in just a few weeks. Should be a really fun group. Now, moving forward, the Lakers are preparing for free agency, and it's going to be an interesting summer. Now, the news that actually has been coming out recently has been mostly around Paul George, though. As teams are getting ready for free agency, they're trying to figure out what's going to happen with Paul George. And it's been a bit of a roller coaster. A story came out that Paul George had actually called Klay Thompson and talked to him about potentially joining forces in LA, which got LA fans in a frenzy. Everybody was all up and excited. And then we all just got smashed down by that Woj tweet that the Boston Celtics are trying to land Paul George and Gordon Hayward, and that they think that if they do that, they can keep Paul George next summer, or they could even maybe potentially extend him. What do you have on all that? Where are you at with the whole situation?
Well, I must say, first of all, I was surprised that Boston was able to kind of reinsert themselves into the conversation, Trevor. They have some nice pieces, Boston. Obviously, Jay Crowder's there and Isaiah Thomas. They want to get Gordon Hayward badly. I know that. We all believe he'd be a really good fit there. But then you start to throw in a guy like Paul George. If you're able to get Hayward and then Paul George, we talk about versatility. Like, that's the word now in the NBA. How many versatile players, positionless guys can you have? I mean, that's Hayward and George. Those guys can do so many different things. And I think Paul George is, if they were able to get him, even the possibility that they could extend him has to terrify Laker fans, because as we know, he went out and said he wants to be a Laker, and we all have thought that LA feels great about it. I mean, Magic feels great about it. It's part of the reason they felt really good about drafting Ball second, because they could go out and get their wing. I still think the Lakers have a really good shot to get him, whether it's now or down the road in free agency. But it is scary because Boston's one of the few teams, Trevor, that can go out and get a guy like Paul George and then win. Like, they weren't that far off last year from beating Cleveland, I didn't think. I mean, Isaiah Thomas got hurt and that series changed, but I still think this is a very scary thing if you're a Laker fan.
Absolutely. And Jordan, here's my thought process on it, is that I think if the Lakers were going to land Paul George this summer, it would have happened before the draft, because now that they've made those picks, you don't know if Indiana wants Thomas Bryant. You don't know if they want Kyle Kuzma or Josh Hart or any of those players. So, I mean, I think that Indiana would have accepted the deal before the draft and then made those picks themselves. So who knows what's going to end up happening with Paul George. I think at this point, most Lakers fans would be happy if he just winds up going somewhere and then not extending. As long as he doesn't extend somewhere, then at least, Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka will get in a room with him next summer and hopefully convince him to come over. If he goes to Boston and Boston gives up a ton of assets for him and then he doesn't extend and the Lakers steal him next summer, I mean, that's a dream come true for Lakers fans. But right now it's sounding kind of bleak at this point. So we'll see what ends up happening with Paul George, but it's definitely going to be one of those things that we're going to have to really keep an eye on.
No question. And Boston, they can probably create the most attractive package. That's why Indiana, their GM Kevin Pritchard, that's why he would even consider trading him. Now, obviously, the other side of it is, why would you trade Paul George to a rival in the East? But if they're not going to get back anywhere near what they would have, because they've waited so long. And that's not on Pritchard; he's the new GM. But if Boston's able to create a really good package, it would make sense for Indiana to make that move because they want to get back as much as they can. So it's a tricky spot for the Pacers, but I still think, going back to what I said earlier, I still think L.A. long-term makes so much sense for Paul George because he's an L.A. guy. He's always wanted to be a Laker, and it's so attractive to play for a guy like Magic. And then, like I said, playing with somebody like Lonzo Ball, that would make him so much better, whereas a guy like Isaiah Thomas, assuming he's there long-term in Boston, he's a guy that really needs the ball, and he's going to take the ball from you to a degree.
Right. Now, this is it's going to be a interesting summer for Lakers fans to keep an eye on this whole Paul George thing and everything. Obviously, the hope is that he does come to the Lakers. Even if it's next summer, that's fine. And the rumor has him potentially teaming up with LeBron James. It sounds so far-fetched. LeBron James leaving the Cavs to come to the Lakers. But do you think that's that really has any legs?
I do. I think it has a lot of legs. And, it's like, okay, well, Laker fans, if you don't get Paul George, LeBron James, he's getting consolation prize. I think there is a lot to be said about this. And I think I was like most people, Trevor, when I first heard it, I thought, really, like, could this really happen? But the more you think about it, the more it makes sense. First of all, LeBron's 32. He's won a title in Cleveland. I think that validates him where he feels like he can leave. The ability to pursue all the off-the-court stuff entertainment-wise in L.A. while playing for Magic is really intriguing. This is somebody in LeBron James who, he obviously wants to win, but if you're in L.A., you can simultaneously do these things while also playing, which is not really the same thing to be said about being in Cleveland. So I could see it, no question.
So the rumor that's out there right now is that the Boston Celtics are actually attempting to get both Gordon Hayward and Paul George, which would be terrible for the Los Angeles Lakers. But interesting note here is that they are actually going to be considering Blake Griffin as their backup to Gordon Hayward. If they can't get Gordon Hayward to come over from the Utah Jazz, then they'll chase Blake Griffin in free agency. And this is actually breaking news here. Chris Paul has been traded to the Houston Rockets for a first-round pick, Sam Decker, Lou Williams, and Patrick Beverley. So I guess two things here. First, what's your take on this trade? And then second of all, how does this impact Blake Griffin's free agency? Does he then become more available for a team like the Celtics, or is he more likely to stay on maybe a 5-year deal with the Clippers?
Yeah, I'll start with the trade as a whole, Trevor. I think, Houston did well in the sense that they got a great player. And, sure, like that's awesome for them. But at the same time, my question mark for them is how do they really go about having two ball-dominant guys? Last year James Harden really was on the ball all year. He was incredible, and it's why he was an MVP candidate. And now all of a sudden you're bringing in a guy like Chris Paul, who is a great scorer, who is fantastic in pick and roll, but has to have the ball in his hands. He's obviously a very efficient player. Last year 19-10, or for his career 19-10, and obviously he can give you 30 if you need him. But I just don't know the fit. On paper it sounds great, but I'm not so sure how it'll work out for Houston in terms of two guys that really want to score and have the ball. And then on the other side, the Clippers got back something. They got a couple assets. They got Lou Williams who can still play a little bit. So at least they didn't get totally fleeced in the sense of like, we're going to trade Chris Paul and not get anything back. So that's a plus for them. As for Blake, I think it's really early to tell. I still think Oklahoma City makes sense. You mentioned Boston as potential backup if they don't get Hayward. So I'm not sure with Blake. I know that he didn't want to be playing with Chris Paul. So I think, we'll have to wait and see on that.
Right, and we're seeing now that J.J. Redick is unlikely to sign with the Clippers because of this deal, or maybe not because of it, but it's certainly a factor. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out. Mm-hmm. Of course, now the Clippers battle for L.A. or their push to try to take L.A. from the Lakers never really picked up that much steam, and it seems like it may kind of be dead in the water at this point, right?
For which one, Trevor?
For the Clippers trying to win over fans in Los Angeles.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, they had their run, and they certainly tried. They spent a lot of money. It just didn't work out. And the fact that they blew that lead against Houston, the fact that they were never able to get to a conference final, obviously so disappointing for them. And of course now the Lakers are really on the cusp of being really good, maybe great again.
Right, yeah. If things fall their way and they're able to land Paul George, maybe LeBron James next summer, then the Lakers could be up at the top again. The Clippers could be down at the bottom. We'll see. It's going to be. It all depends on where the chips fall here. So speaking of the Lakers, weird situation to be in, I think, heading into free agency, because they have stated that they don't want to take on any salary for 2018, which means they're pretty much limited to 1-year deals. Do you have any guys out there that you think may be interested in taking some of the Lakers' cap space? They should have about $18 million or so in cap space, right around 12 if they decide to keep Tarik Black.
Right, exactly. So, like you said, I mean, Pelinka, the GM, has been very clear, saying that they have a plan in place for what they want to do. They don't have, like you said, they don't have any desire to add to this cap, because they want to have as much possible for next season. And so then they went out and got these 4 players, and if they end up keeping these players, Trevor, the question is, who are they really going to go out and get? What do they really need? I think it behooves them to go out and get another ball handler, a guy that can create, help Lonzo Ball a little bit. But that's also assuming that they're going to keep Jordan Clarkson, and I'm not so sure. I mean, they traded D'Angelo Russell, but let's just assume they keep Clarkson. Would that really help them? Because he's a guy, Jordan, that really needs the ball as well. I mean, he's a combo guy, but he can create. So the interesting guy for me is P.J. Dozier. They went out and signed him from South Carolina. They actually do like him, and has great size. So if the Lakers are going to make a move, it's either going to be for a backup, basically a backup point guard because Russell's gone, or maybe another shot blocker. But I don't really see them going out and being aggressive.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, whereas like last year, they kicked off free agency with the shocking Mozgov deal, and then followed that
30
up
minutes
with
in, yeah.
Yeah, that was like right away. I couldn't believe it. I just don't think we're going to see those kind of fireworks this year. I could even see them maybe absorbing a 1-year deal from somebody that's trying to make another move, like they did last year with Jose Calderon, and a few years before that with Jeremy Lin. So maybe something along those lines. Right. I don't know if you're hearing anything else from any of your sources about what they may do, but it seems like it'll be a quiet free agency.
Exactly. I mean, I mentioned the backup point guard. I mean, Darren Collison he had a decent year in Sacramento. He's obviously an LA guy.
Right.
He could help them, but I mentioned Dozier being there. It would be nice for them to go out and get another shooter, but shootings, you have to pay a premium to do it. So I just don't see them being very active.
Right. I had some people asking me on Twitter today, why don't they go after, say, JJ Redick? I just think guys like that are going to take too much money and too many years. And
too many years, yeah. Well, he's 33, and he wants, and that's the other thing I mentioned, it being a premium shooting, Trevor. He can command a big deal. I mean, whether it's Brooklyn, where he has an apartment, whether it's Philadelphia. I know you want to win, but he's 33. He can get a big contract, his last big contract. The Lakers aren't in that equation because they're just not going to pay the money or the years.
We're going to pause for just one moment to talk about team building. Obviously, it's a big thing in the NBA. I mean, right now the Houston Rockets are trying to put together an interesting team that can contend with the Golden State Warriors. And, of course, the Lakers are getting ready to hit free agency and work on building their team. Well, the way you run your business is kind of the same way. I mean, you got to find not just talent, but you have to find the right talent. You got to find the right fit. And with ZipRecruiter, you can do that. You can actually post your job to 100 plus job sites with just one click. Then their powerful technology efficiently matches the right people to your job better than anyone else can. That's why ZipRecruiter is different. Unlike other job sites, ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you, it finds them. In fact, over 80% of jobs posted on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate in just 24 hours. No juggling emails or calls to your office. Simply screen, rate, and manage candidates all in one place with ZipRecruiter's easy-to-use dashboard. Find out today why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes to find the most qualified job candidates with immediate results. And right now, my listeners can post jobs on ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, it's free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/Lakers. That's ZipRecruiter.com/Lakers. One more time, try it for free right now. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/Lakers. So it may end up, I mean, as exciting as this offseason has been, it may end up being kind of quiet as far as free agency goes for the Lakers. I'm sure they'll still do a few things, make a few moves here and there. Maybe they find a trade. Like you mentioned, maybe Jordan Clarkson's still on the block. We've heard these rumblings that he doesn't have a whole lot of value around the league. Have you heard anything along those lines?
Yeah, like if you think about where he's come from, and how he's developed into this like legitimate combo guy who can shoot it, who can guard. He's got good size. There isn't a huge market for him. It's surprising. Like Russell had a much bigger market because obviously he's a second pick. He's very young, and people still believe that he can be a star in this league. Clarkson's value to me isn't as big as I thought it would be. I still think there are multiple teams that would like to have him because of his versatility. Again, going back to that word, how many of these guys can be 3-and-D guys? I think Jordan's value is, I don't want to say limited, but it's probably not as high as you would imagine for somebody. You look at the numbers and his age, there's a lot to like there, but his value isn't huge.
If it were up to you, would you keep Tarik Black? He's got a $6 million team option for one season.
Yeah, I would. I like him. The team option's the key. You can only have a few guys on your roster like him. Like obviously he's not super talented, but he's really good for what they're building. You know, he's just a gamer. Guys like him. He's physical. He's a winner. I just really like him. I think he's a perfect fit for them and what they want to do. You don't have to pay him a ton. $6 million in this day and age is not that much. I would prefer, if I'm a Laker fan, they keep him.
Yeah, especially on this one-year deal. And he's the type of guy that you want around young players. He's just such an inspirational leader and fascinating person. Just really, really interesting, the kind of view that he has on life and the way he approaches things. Just a very cool guy. So I'm definitely with you. I hope they hang on to him, but we'll see what ends up happening. Now, I know you got to run pretty soon here. So before you get out of here, the big news this morning was that Phil Jackson is out in New York. You live in New York. What's the take there? What's the feeling in the city right now?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many happy Knicks fans walking around at the same time. It's like, okay, well, we still have James Dolan. I mean, he's the guy that's really controlling the chessboard here, or I guess checkers for him. And it's just very disappointing if you're a Knicks fan because they wasted so much under Phil Jackson. The opportunity to really maybe emerge with a Hall of Fame executive, Hall of Fame coach didn't happen. The fact that they almost traded Kristaps Porzingis says all you need to know, Trevor. And it took the fact that it took James Dolan this long to figure it out. Remember, Phil ran this draft, and a big reason that why they drafted Frank Ntilikina was because of the triangle, his ability to really run an offense within a triangle. I still think he's going to be a good player for them, but there's just so much dysfunction. So yeah, there is some relief that Phil's gone, but ultimately not a lot of happiness. I mean, and to close on this, Trevor, it's really simple. You know, if you have to be pretty crazy to get James Dolan to fire you, to get James Dolan to think you're nuts, and that's what Phil Jackson accomplished. So, good riddance to him if you're a Knicks fan, and obviously they really want to move on from that. But there's still so many issues within this organization that I'm not really sure how much it matters.
Yeah, we'll have to see how things all shake out with Carmelo Anthony. I mean, obviously this changes things for him because he was at odds with Phil Jackson, and of course the whole Kristaps Porzingis thing and all that. Just, it's amazing. Everything that's going on in this NBA offseason has been so incredible. All these rumors flying and everything like that. I mean, this is what's made the offseason so exciting, or it's been maybe even more exciting than the NBA playoffs were. At least I think. I
totally agree. The playoffs were not great. Let's just leave it at that.
Right. Well, Jordan, thank you again so much for your time. I know things are crazy right now and super busy, so we certainly appreciate you hopping on here with us.
My pleasure, Trevor. Thank you, man.
All right. Have a great one. So that was Yahoo Sports NBA insider Jordan Schultz. You can find him on Twitter at Schultz_report. Great stuff. Busy time in the NBA. Don't forget, free agency starts for us here on the West Coast, it starts at 9 p.m. on June 30th. Technically, it starts July 1st, right at midnight. But obviously for us here, that'll fall at 9 p.m. on June 30th. So be ready for that. Head to LakersNation.com for all the latest free agency coverage. That's going to about wrap things up for us today. Make sure you head over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to this show. And of course, you can also find us on Stitcher, TuneIn, CLNS Media app, and of course, LakersNation.com. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm Trevor Lane, and this has been the Lakers Nation podcast.